What is going on, everybody? And in this video, we are giving you a state of the market and stock picks for April 20th, 2022. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing, as I do provide daily and weekly updates to get you prepared for the day and week ahead. So let's get right into state of the market. We had a massive rip up. The biggest thing coming out of today is people are starting to believe that we've essentially topped out on inflation and that inflation can't get any higher from here. There's some data to back this up, but we have to really see if that is true or not. And so we have earnings on ramp right now. Again, nothing new from the Ukraine-Russia war that is currently going on. Everything is primarily focused on the Fed. Everything is primarily focused on current earnings going on and what sanctions are doing and lockdowns are doing to these companies. So being said, we came in today, we had a massive rip up because people are starting to believe that inflation is topped out. And then we've had we had Fed members come on today as well, and they're talking about ultimately being very hawkish on rate raises in the double rate hikes and stuff going on coming in the upcoming meetings. So that stuff is all expected. And again, I think even bond buying will continue to go forward as long as the war continues. And again, there's no end sight for that. But interesting enough, we technical wise, let me actually pull up SPX here. Technical wise, we topped out at that 20 EMA weekly. This is something I was watching coming into the day. I thought if we did start pushing for some odd reason, we could potentially hit that. I was not expecting us to hit that today. I was actually expecting us to kind of gap over this possibly tonight. But the biggest thing that we had to watch was to see what was going on with Netflix earnings. We did have IBM earnings. IBM did very well, but they don't hold as much weight as Netflix did. And Netflix, they missed expectations. And not only that being said, they are projecting to lose 2 million subscribers, and that essentially obliterated Netflix. So where does that leave us for tomorrow? That puts a lot of different things on watch. Now, the biggest earnings we got tomorrow is Tesla. How do they do? If they do not do well, we are going to be in a shitstorm. And who knows how much selling we could potentially do. Again, I said we could potentially still sell off quite a bit. I'm not saying we're going to crash, but I could say we could still sell off pretty heavy. Due to the fact that the earnings aren't good because of sanctions. And then I think we will ultimately, we still have to remember there's a lot of money in the system. Have to remember, yes, there is inflation. And the theory could potentially be, that the U.S. is providing Ukraine with money to help, float the dollar. So this could help combat inflation as well. So there's a lot of different theories and stuff going on with that, but ultimately understand that Tesla is going to be the big heavyweight in the bunch. And if they go down tomorrow, and if they kill it, and for whatever reason, forward guidance, whatever, a lot of earnings have been based off of forward guidance. If forward guidance looks really bad, numbers are good, stocks have been tanking. So that's something to be very mindful of tomorrow. Again, Netflix with its bad earnings tanked quite a bit. We can actually drop down to Netflix here real quick and take a look at it. As you can see, it took a heavy hit. I mean, 2 million subscribers is going to do that. So you're looking at over 100-point play almost to the downside. Again, Netflix has been struggling for a while. This is nothing new. I think the only thing that saved them last quarter was essentially a show that had came out on Netflix, Squid Games. I think ultimately helped them kind of retake some of those old levels. But again, massive hit. Gaming also took a massive hit too, so that doesn't help. Netflix is trying to get in gaming, so that doesn't help either. But So being said, that was the biggest catalyst that essentially drove this down to where it is. I believe this can continue on tomorrow. It could be continuation. You have to understand that a bounce like this or a sell-off like this, you're going to get some kind of relief bounce, potentially, depending where this is tomorrow. I mean, you're looking at 307.50. I think you'd be lucky to see 295 tomorrow as any kind of relief bounce. Just be mindful of that if you're going to try to short this, to wait for it to bounce and then try to catch the pump, and then try to write it down even more. But even still, then you're breaking some levels that we haven't seen in a very, very long time. Again, Netflix is really struggling in general. So you're looking at these levels here. And potentially the 197, strong possibility. Again, pandemic run up. Now everything's come crashing down. This is really just getting normalized to pre-pandemic levels. I think a lot of stuff needed to be normalized. And so you're kind of seeing that. So you could even potentially see down to a 200 floor on this thing if it can't hold this 254 tomorrow. So that's something to watch. Again, you're going to get a relief bounce because this massive sell like this, people will still come in and buy it. Again, you'll always see a relief bounce, then a sell. So in my opinion, if you're looking to short this, I'd wait for the jump first, the pop first, and then short the pop on that one. Again, not financial advice, but that is one of the biggest catalysts going into tomorrow. And so again, looking at SPX, I actually thought we were going to go to the upside, gap up, but that Netflix pulled everything down. It pulled all service companies down. Disney went down as well, and Spot and all them, they all went down as well. So being said, be interesting to see. I think we're going to head back down towards that 43.75 mark tomorrow, potentially just maybe even the 44 mark if we don't gap down to that tomorrow. I think we're going to see this level back down again tomorrow because of that. And then if Tesla does do bad, I could see us breaking this 50 EMA weekly. Now, this is something I've talked about. It doesn't matter what time frame you really look on, but it's, you can see a lot clearer on the hourly, 4 hour, daily. Anytime you test the 50, so you have the EMAs. And I'm talking on the daily here. So you typically have we've broken below the 50 on here, but if you look on the hourly, or typically here, you broke above the 200, you got a solid run up, you hit that, okay, we're talking about the weekly here, that's right. This is actually a weekly. I don't know why I have it shaded purple, but nonetheless, so you tag the 50 weekly and you went straight up to the 20 weekly. When you break below that, you'll get a retest, which we did. We get a second retest, then we tested the 50, now we're testing the 20. Now being said, if we get bad earnings and everything goes on, this might actually break back below the 50. Now, typically, the market doesn't stay below that 50 very often. Normally, that 50 holds really well, so we could potentially at least revisit the 50 weekly. Now, if it breaks back down below that, it could get nastier. But again, I don't see us selling that much. You have the 50 EMA monthly at that 43.28 mark. Could be another level. So even if you break this, you got another about 50, roughly 50 point move down to that other 50 on the monthly. So that could potentially get really interesting. Again, I think ultimately the year will finish up bullish, but massive volatility. There's a lot of things that need to be worked out right now. So, and again, we had a war that was unforeseen that kind of has really thrown a wrench and everything as well. So being said, watching those current levels, Bitcoin's been running in parallel essentially with the market. So that's one thing to observe. Be mindful of is that it could be an inflation gauge with Bitcoin. Again, regulations and everything, but ultimately, once the market starts to really rip, I think Bitcoin itself will rip as well, since since blockchain essentially has been integrated in all kinds of companies right now. So being said, that it's going to be a big catalyst to help this continue up in the upcoming months ahead. Now, going into tomorrow, obviously Tesla is going to be the big one. They have earnings. They've been struggling to break this 1022 mark. So I'm seeing this actually, if we don't gap down tomorrow, could potentially see this come back down to that 971 mark. In a pretty solid base. Now, I thought we were going to rip here, but obviously the Netflix news has dropped us back below. So we kind of just hit that top range. Now starting to come back down. Again, we'll see where we land tomorrow. This one, I really just want to, the premiums are really high, so I wouldn't really mess with this one tomorrow. I'd kind of wait until see what happens on Thursday. But ultimately, this one I think can, it could potentially start selling. I mean, if the whole market starts selling, obviously Tesla's going to keep selling. But earnings is going to be big. Like I said, if they don't do well, I can see this coming way back down. The whole market itself will come way back down. Possibly another 2 or 3 legs, I think, is a strong possibility if that does happen. But again, I think we can turn around. And then it's all going to, if that does happen, we're going to continue to get this very negative, essentially snowball effect, because you're going to have bad earnings and you're going to follow it up with a Fed and rate hikes. And the market's going to get tired of it and it's going to start selling again, I think is what we're kind of, it looks like we're starting to kind of go into. We've had a lot of mixed earnings, some good, some bad. So again, Netflix is the leading indicator. If they do not do good, I still think your Googles and your Apples will still do well. Tesla is debatable, but we'll see what happens. Even if they do good and they start selling, that is something to keep an eye on as well. Because that could cause issues. The market is just ready to sell at that point. And so to try to buy the dip, I think you'll get wrecked if you buy the dip when the market wants to sell and things look good. Things look good on paper, but the market's going to sell, and it's going to sell no matter what you do. So as long as you're an investor and that's what you're doing, well, then that's great. But otherwise, it can change. So that's Tesla tomorrow. So watching those key levels again, and it really needs a break above this 1020 and continue going. It just cannot break it. As you can see, we've attempted multiple times and just played this wide range. So just keep an eye on that. Google, another one, wide range. It broke right back down. So watching that 2500 mark again. They have earnings next week. If it does hit here and hold, it could get a nice pop, but it isn't the first attempt. Like I said, the first attempt is where you get the big bounce. Second attempt and third attempts, you start getting smaller bounces, and then you start breaking down. So you got to be careful of that. But I do want to watch that 2500 mark tomorrow. Did hit the 50 EMA weekly and got rejected. But if we do break and hold above that, at 2600 mark, I think you start a strong push up from that point. So watching that one really close. Melee is another one I'm watching. Hard rejection off the 50. I tried to short this today, but it just had too much strength. The market actually was acting really weird towards the end of the day, to be honest. The SPY at the SPX was wicking like a 10-point push and wick towards the last hour of the day. There was a huge battle. I swear it was like every 5-10 minutes. It pushed and then it wicked and then it pushed and it wicked. 10 points on the index, which is something you don't see very often. So there was a major battle going on there today. So again, something to really keep an eye on and watch these, because if we do sell, immediately I'm looking at the 1053 mark, and you got some lower levels at the, again, psychological levels, the 1K mark and stuff like that. But another big one I want to watch. Shop is already taking a beating, so it's kind of hard to watch that one. Amazon could potentially sell back down to 3K mark, something I need to watch. I want to watch this 3110 mark. If we do break that tomorrow, break below that on the hourly, could potentially sell pretty heavy on that. So if we're looking for a lot of these to start flipping, we got ASML in the morning too. So you want to watch like NVIDIA here, the 210 mark. If it breaks that, you could potentially see the 189 mark. Again, the 200 is always going to be a psychological level, even though I don't have it marked off here. But you do have to watch that. If ASML does bad, all the chips could start be getting hit really bad and start selling quick. So I do need to watch that. Trying to think, those are the biggest ones that have the biggest pushes up and a lot of downside, or the bigger industry leaders. So you definitely want to keep an eye on that. A lot of these other ones have been beaten down and stayed beaten down for a while. So just be mindful of that. But that's pretty much what I got. I don't want to make this video too long. It's sitting at roughly 15 minutes or so. So if you made it this far, I appreciate you. I'll go ahead and drop a like, and I will see you guys on the next one.